Welcome to the Nazareth College Centennial Podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nealand, and in each episode I'll be guiding you through stories of amazing alumni, fascinating faculty, or the hidden history of the college. Today's episode, Magdalen LaRow.
You know, she was a nun, but one of the hippest people I ever met.
That was Ron Netsky, who came to Nazareth College in the mid-1970s. He worked closely with Sister LaRow, who he called a friend.
She was even more spectacular than I ever imagined. But she was an alum, so she was a graduate of Nazareth College. She came back as a Sister of St. Joseph and was an art professor here for many, many years. She just is an amazing, amazing person.
That was Deborah Janetos. Although she never met Sister LaRow, she's become quite an admirer of this extraordinary person. This podcast is about history and memory and how the two blend together to help us understand the past. On the one hand, Deborah Janetos has used historical documents and material from the archive to recover the story of Magdalen LaRow. Ron Netsky knew her well.
No, I never met her. I wish I had, but I never did. But at this point, I feel like I know her. I mean, here's a person who came here as a young woman, graduated, I think, in 1950, went off, became a Sister of St. Joseph, then came back here to teach at her alma mater. And she was very instrumental in the early years of the art department here. And under her, she was, I think, the chairman of the art department for maybe 25 years or whatever. But from there, it grew from a very small department to where it is now. Discovering about her, I felt was it shows you how you go about discovering something. Clue leads to another. Everything's like a treasure hunt. And I think that's the way it is with historical research anyway.
Sister Magdalen LaRow was born in Utica, New York in 1928. She came to Nazareth College in the late 1940s. 1950, she graduated, and a year later joined the Sisters of St. Joseph. In 1955, she received her degree in art history and returned to the college where she was chair of the fledgling art department. Over the next 4 decades, Sister LaRow reshaped that program into the signature program that exists today. She had a hand in conceiving and building the Art Center, and left a lasting impression on this campus in terms of her role as the faculty representative for the Peace Corps, and of course, the many students she worked with. We've come down to the archive to ask Debbie Janetos about Magdalen LaRow. I'm standing in the archive of Nazareth College, which is located at the Laurette Wilmot Library. I'm with Debbie Janetos, who's the archivist for Nazareth College.
So we have an odd assortment of things.
There's everything from old drinking fountains to maps and plans for the college.
With registrar's board down at the other end of the library now, which we've posted against the wall there, is of great visual interest because this is the old way they used to schedule classes.
Literally, the registrar's board is a collection of small notes pinned based on day and time of the week in which they set up the scheduling for Nazareth College for decades. And it is now here in the archive. So if you want to come visit it, and there's still some classes listed on there, perhaps you took one, we could arrange that.
Yes, we also have clothing. I have blazers that have been donated to us from alums. A particularly interesting red one, which was a very unique one apparently. We have a collection of yearbooks. We have college catalogs. We have, which are really, really useful, we have those back to the day one, because whenever the president's office wants to find out, what courses were taught in the 30s, or, how much did it cost to go here then, we do have that at our fingertips.
Available for use by students and faculty, staff, and of course...
We do. We have a lot of, we have alums that are really, really interested. We also have children of alums who want to come back, and many times they want to donate articles that belong to their parent. Sometimes a graduation gown, hat, mortar, tassels, things like that. They want to come back and see what their parent, what they looked like when they were younger and how they were involved in college. So, and we do have people from the outside who are interested who come in.
So let's say I'm the child of an alum or an alum and I want to make arrangements to come to the archive sometime. How would they do that?
The best way to do that is for you to email me and we can set up an appointment, and we're glad to do this anytime.
That's great. And what would your email be?
It's DJANETOS to1@naz.edu. We're always happy to help.
Today we're going to look at
Sister Magdalen LaRow. How I discovered Sister Magdalen is really kind of the interesting story.
talk about how you discovered it.
So about 4 years ago, one of the Nazareth alums came back to celebrate a 50th graduation anniversary. And one of the things she was doing was coming in and donating articles. One article she gave me was her freshman college beanie. Now, many people today don't know what a beanie is.
A college beanie worn the freshman year at college. It showed school spirit and a sense of belonging.
I still have mine. But this is, I'm holding in my hand it's her purple and gold wool beanie cap that she wore as a freshman with the year 1965. And so I have that, and I have her picture. Apparently, at the time she was here at school, she was the president of her class, and she was very active. But she also was one of the early Peace Corps volunteers. So I never realized that Nazareth had quite an involvement with the Peace Corps program in the 60s. And the Nazareth contact person was Sister Magdalen LaRow. It was like, wow, this is really very interesting. And so I looked and I found in her we have faculty files, and I found a great deal of information about Sister Magdalen's time as the Peace Corps contact. And in these files, there are all the letters setting up the whole program. But what's really fun to read are the letters the correspondence between Sister Magdalen and the students that were off after graduation in the Peace Corps. A lot of them in Africa, Turkey, South America. And it's amazing to look at the letters. They're all typed or handwritten, many times on the very, very thin little, par avion, the mailing paper. Beautiful. We have beautiful postcards. We have all kinds of very interesting artifacts that people would love to see, I'm sure. And it just captures the whole time. It captures the whole spirit of the John F. Kennedy's call to action, and it fits very well in with the mission of the school at the time. I think the Sisters of St. Joseph were very active in social causes. They were very early, had been active in the Selma, in integration. They were nurses, they were activists, they were educators. And so this whole idea of service, I think, really fit in with their mission. And Sister Magdalen was just right up there.
President Kennedy established the Peace Corps by executive order on March 1st, 1961.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis. I'm also sending to Congress a message proposing authorization of a permanent Peace Corps. This Corps will be a pool of trained men and women sent overseas by the United States government or through private institutions and organizations to help foreign countries meet their urgent needs for skilled manpower. It is our hope to have between 500 to 1,000 people in the field by the end of this year. We will send Americans abroad who are qualified to do a job. We will send those abroad who are committed to the concept which motivates the Peace Corps. It will not be easy. None of the men and women will be paid a salary. They will live at the same level as the citizens of the country which they're sent to, doing the same work, eating the same food, speaking the same language. We're going to put particular emphasis on those men and women who have skills in teaching, agriculture, and in health. I'm hopeful that it will be a source of satisfaction to Americans and a contribution to world peace. Thank you.
The story goes that John F. Kennedy, when he was at the University of Michigan talking to about 10,000 students who'd come to hear him, he said, "How many of you would be willing to serve their country in the cause of peace by living and working in a developing world?" Their enthusiastic response is said to have encouraged the president to start the Peace Corps, urging a new generation to ask not what their country could do for them, but what they could do for their country. And that appealed to the young students at Nazareth College who went to the developing nations to lend a hand, to build latrines, to work on wells, and to help developing nations prepare as those nations entered full independence and integration into the world political and economic community. Some of those students wrote back, and we have their letters in the archive. Deborah Janetos is going to read to us a letter from a student who was at the Ivory Coast. Students met and worked with President Felix Houphouët-Boigny, who was the first president of the Ivory Coast, a pro-Western leader, and had served as president from 1960 till his death in 1993. We're looking at a letter from a former student who was in the Peace Corps to Sister Magdalen.
Yes, sir. We did quite a bit of work at the conference. We wrote the complete training manual for the girls in the States this summer. We each chose a section to do, discussed everything we wanted to include, and then came back up country to do the final drafts. We were all quite excited to find out exactly what we had learned in such a short time about the Beoulé people, their customs, their way of thinking, their attitude toward change. We also included everything we thought the girls should be made to do during training, and leading the list was the construction of a latrine. We don't know if that will be accepted, but I'm sure I wish I had built one before coming over. The highlight of the first 8 months was a visit with President Felix at his residence in Yamoussoukro, his hometown. It was on May 6th, and all the Peace Corps volunteers were there, 73 of us. It was just the most fabulous day and so informal and casual. Upon arrival, we were taken on bus tours of his plantations of yams, rice, corn, and new irrigation projects. The second most exciting day was yesterday. In one of our villages, we managed to see 24 latrines, and yesterday, with the help of 2 others, 5 concrete slabs were poured for them. You just can't imagine all the work that has gone into just getting all the materials out to the village. Stone, sand, iron bar reinforcement, slab forms.
After the Peace Corps was established, 2 Nazareth graduates joined the Corps in 1962, 3 in 1963, 4 in 1964, and yes, 5 also in 1965, bringing the total number of our alumni to 16. They served in the Philippines, Brazil, India, Turkey, Nigeria, Malawi, Tunisia.
Some of the girls went to Turkey, and some went to South America. But a lot of them were in Africa at that point, too. So Nazareth, for a school of its size, sent like 15 girls to the Peace Corps. Of course, it was girls at that time, so it was an all-girls school. But it was at the time, considering the size of the college, that was a high percentage. You know, very, very few colleges sent that many.
Right, and of course the number of students at Nazareth College in the 1960s would have been far fewer.
Right. Maybe 800.
And we owe it all to Sister Magdalen.
We really do. I mean, she was just a very remarkable person. For Women's History Month, I was asked to write a blog about somebody. And boy, I thought of Sister Magdalen. She apparently kept a book of every student she ever taught. She would have their names written down. She would keep in contact with one of their librarians, Jennifer Burr, took one of her art history classes. And she said they were memorable, and she would always say to them, when you see such and such a painting, not if you'd ever. She always assumed you would go out there in the world and see these. She brought everything to life. So she must have been a spectacular professor to have. I would have loved to have had her, in my class as a professor. She also, as far as her artwork goes, I came across independently a lot of, just in going around the archives, in folders, I find things. At one point, I found Christmas cards, and they're mostly religious motifs, and they're also bookmarks and all kinds of designs with calligraphy. She did beautiful calligraphy with religious sayings and other. She was responsible for designing all of these cards, and initially she started selling them as little fundraisers to make some money for the art department, apparently. And so she started selling these, and apparently at one point she had sold over 1 million over the number of years and raised thousands of dollars for the art department, for the school. And some of them have sayings from that for Thomas Merton. I think I'm looking at one now. Give me humility, in which alone is rest. Wrote Thomas Merton himself and asked him for his permission to use his writings. And she said he was very kind and said yes, and also, indicated he liked her artwork too. So that was very special. And I think given the Thomas Merton connections we have here at the college, I think it's particularly nice to know that she actually was in contact with Thomas Merton himself, and he approved of the designs and approved of the sayings that she was using. Very interesting to find, so that was a special find too.
Right. So to describe them, many of them have a religious motif, but they are brilliantly illustrated. Some of them are more simple line drawings, but others have been inked in very carefully, and they're all of about 5x3.
Right. Generally, that size. Yeah.
Just a particularly useful size for mailing.
And for using as bookmarks, which people may not use today, but we prefer you to use a bookmark than to bend the corners of a book. But they were handed out a lot in those days. A little handy thing to pick up. So I wanted to make sure I showed you the bookmarks. And so, because she had an eye for color, unofficial decorator on campus, apparently. I remember when I first came to the library, for instance, I was always told the art professor decorated. She did the decorative aspects of the reading room, for instance, and chose the colors. So we looked at it, and because it was very, very 50s and 60s, it was the range of avocados and golds, like each pillar was a different shade, but they had all been done on purpose. And so that was very interesting. And she helped decorate Sister Helen Daniels, who was the president of the college, decorated her office, apparently, and right down to, they always said, the pink chairs, and that it was very, typical of the time. She also was responsible for a lot of the stained glass windows that are here on campus. And I think there's some in the Schultz Center still. She also, in what is now Elizabeth George Hall, which was originally the infirmary for the Sisters of St. Joseph, and the part of the building, that used to be the chapel. She created the stained glass windows that were installed for that particular space. And I think she probably also created them too. She designed them and created them. They were removed when the sisters built the new mother house. And they're now installed outside the chapel along their beautiful courtyard. And if anybody's interested, they really should go over there and take a look at them because they're spectacular.
The stained glass windows are beautiful. I took a look at the ones that have been reinstalled at the Sisters of St. Joseph Mother House.
There's a beautiful portrait of her done by the artist John Menahan, who is the same artist who was responsible for designing the stained glass window in the library. He also painted the portraits of the Wilmots as you come in into the library opposite the circulation desk. And he also, which I think is kind of fascinating, he also painted one of the original murals in the tunnels, and it's called the Ruth mural, and that's John Menahan also. So, but there's a beautiful portrait of her in the art department still. So it's well worth seeing if you're interested in just passing through there. She just was a multifaceted person. She's so very instrumental in what I call one of the crown jewels of Nazareth College, which was the Art Center. She was initially asked because being in the art department, and they knew they wanted maybe to include the art department in the new art center complex. But she was also, her father was an engineer, so she was able to read blueprints. So she really became very, very involved, so much so that she even did an internship with the architects. She not only helped write the grant to get the art center up and going and get the money for it, but she was very involved with the design aspects, right down to the type of window glass that would be used in the part of the building that the art department would be in. Certain kind of non-reflective glass and this and that. So, she not only helped grow the department, but she actually was responsible for bringing Professor Ron Netsky to campus, and she was probably his mentor for many years. I know they were very close. She touched a lot of this college in many different places and touched a lot of people.
Although Debbie discovered Sister LaRow is the one that discovered Ron Netsky, and it happened when they met by pure chance.
The first time I met her was in an elevator in a hotel in Chicago when I was looking for a job teaching printmaking at a college, and she was looking for a printmaker to teach at Nazareth. We just struck up a conversation in the elevator, and the next day I had an interview, and she hired me. She gave me my one job in my life for 45 years now. I obviously owe a lot to her.
Magdalen LaRow is a very kind person. One day she saw a news story about illiteracy, and she decided to set up informal tutoring.
She's a very giving person, and in the last year or two of her life, she was tutoring one of the maintenance people, one of the facilities, a grounds person, who had never learned to read. And that's the kind of thing she would do. I mean, she had a very busy schedule, but once a week she got together with this guy, and she was teaching him how to read. I think she was always a role model. She was always like somebody everyone loved as an art historian. I mean, she just brought it to life in a way that people raved about her classes. So I totally respected her as a teacher. She cared about the students. That was a great thing. So I think I learned from her that you have to put everything into what you do and really care.
Magdalen LaRow was vivacious and intellectual.
She was lively and funny and smart. She always dressed, in the spirit of the day, and just about as engaging a person as you'd ever meet. I'm an atheist, and have been pretty much from the time I started thinking. And she obviously was not an atheist. But we got along great, and we would kind of kid each other about that. She was never shied away from intellectual debate or challenges. In fact, I remember that the first time I heard about the Amazon rainforest, which now is one of the most crucial issues on the planet, was Sister Magdalen, who was asked to give a talk around sometime in the late 70s to the new students coming in, and she said, I'm going to focus on the future and how vital the Amazon rainforest is for the planet. She was up on all the current issues, and that was just coming up in the 70s, and she was very politically astute. She was the one who got Nazareth involved in the Peace Corps, and just socially a wonderful person. I mean, she, like I said, just funny and smart and just a great person. We would sometimes, a group of people would go out to dinner. I was new. I was 23 years old when she hired me, and I didn't know anybody up here. And she and Sister Monica, I remember, and the priest, Father John back then, we'd go out to eat. They'd pick up an atheist and go out to eat, and it was just, they were friends, definitely. And she was, I would say she was a very good friend. I'll just tell you one little story that seems emblematic of her personality. She really had a lot to do with this building. She worked with the architect, Gino Rossetti, in the 60s to put together a great art center for Nazareth College. And she knew what we needed. So she really worked with the architect. I mean, he did the architecture, but she was right behind it.
Magdalen LaRow earned her Ph.D. She had a zeal for education.
So she had this long hallway filled with studios, and she had plants in the hallway to make it, more beautiful. One of the plants was a night blooming cereus, and she told me about it. She said, do you want to come to a night blooming cereus party? And I said, what's that? She said, well, this plant blooms exactly one time a year, and it blooms in the middle of the night. And when it blooms, it has the most incredible aroma, because since it only blooms once a year, it's got to attract insects that night. And she said, so every year I know it's going to bloom. I have a little party, just a few friends, and we get together and we, and I remember going to that and thinking, wow, who even knows about this stuff, But that's the kind of person she was. She was a great calligrapher. She could do things with a brush and a pen that were amazing. And she'd occasionally just do a poem, but like visually, the letters would make the poem more evocative. You know, she was also the unofficial consultant for all campus decoration. Whenever anybody wanted to, hang anything or even buy furniture, they would consult with Sister Magdalen because she just had such great taste. Well, I think her most astounding achievement was her dedication to and her creation and building of the art department at Nazareth College with a strong art history component that she also built through her own knowledge. She was a PhD art historian. Her legacy really goes on to this day in the strength of the department. And she was smart enough to gear the department toward, back then, art education, which meant that Nazareth students, unlike a lot of art students, got jobs when they got out. And we've extended that by adding visual communication design, founded and nurtured a strong art department. Something everybody sees, but nobody knows it was her. Around the holidays, that star-like thing on the top of Smith Hall that's lit up, that was her idea and her design. It's a very simple design. And I remember talking to her about it, and she said, I don't want it to be a religious thing, but if people want to, they can think of it as the North Star and, the whole manger thing and all. But I designed it to look also like just a snowflake, And so she said it could be a secular snowflake or the North Star or whatever anybody wants it to be, And so it's very simple, but sort of ingeniously designed.
The art department named the highest honor that they give annually after Magdalen LaRow.
We named our largest award in the student show after, it's the Sister Magdalen LaRow Award. It goes to the best artwork as picked by the judge of the show. And so if I'm up there, which I have been because I was department head for 22 years, so most of the time I've been up there doing the awards. I talk about her, it's funny, literally no one else in the department now knew her, because the last person who knew her retired. And I always say this is Sister Magdalen LaRow Award, and most of you have no idea who she is, and then I give a little, because she really founded the department. And she was department head for 27 years, and when it was a small department back then, but still, she built this, that they're here learning because of this really great person.
Magdalen LaRow had spinal cancer and spent the last months of her life in the infirmary, which is now George Hall.
Had cancer at the end. I would visit her all the time, and I worked with her on a project to kind of try to distract her. She was writing a book. I encouraged her on her, on this process. Every week I'd take what she wrote and proofread it, and because she was writing from a hospital bed in terrible condition, so there was always, I talked the college into getting her a little computer, the first laptop ever made. This was in the late 80s. Radio Shack made a little laptop, and she wrote on that.
After a long battle with spinal cancer, Sister LaRow died on February 8th, 1990. Sister Mag left an enduring spirit that continues to permeate the campus. Students that she worked with, students that she called her children. If you worked with Sister LaRow, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on our Facebook page, the Centennial Podcast. Our thanks to Kelsey Jones, Grace Caternolo for their research, Debbie Janetos, and Ron Netsky for speaking with us, And to you, the listener, if you like what you hear, let us know. You can email us at publichistory@nas.edu or call us at 585-389-2649.